Seconds. Tim Cook may soon step down from Apple after taking it from $300 billion in market cap to $3 trillion. And that could be the smartest move of his career. Asian markets tumble after President Trump's new 100% China tariff threat, and experts warn America's economy may be floating on an AI bubble. Plastic surgeons are literally breaking ribs to create so-called Barbie waste. We'll show you just how dangerous and delusional that trend has become. Most Americans now say they'd let brands sponsor their weddings if it meant a free ceremony. Would you say I do to corporate logos on your big day? And as Trump threatens to jail Illinois leaders, governors, and psychiatrists alike ask the same question: is the president losing his mind or just his limits? All that and more today on Filtered.
Welcome to Filtered with TJ Walker.
Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to dive right in. No market update since the markets were closed yesterday. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. Last night, my wife and daughter and I enjoying the musical Evita, one of the great all-time Broadway shows turned into a movie. We're only halfway through. I'll tell you why in just a moment. It does relate to our next story, but I am increasingly spending some time thinking about Perón, what he did to the country of Argentina, what he did to their economy, and lessons for us as well. More about that in just a moment. But first, issue one, Tim Cook's smart exit. At least those are the highly credible rumors right now. Tim Cook may soon retire as Apple's CEO, and that's not bad news. It's a sign of strength. When Cook took over from Steve Jobs in 2011, Apple was worth about $300 billion. Today, it's valued around $3 trillion. That's a tenfold increase that created over $2.7 trillion in shareholder value. That makes Cook one of the most successful CEOs in history. He's up there with NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, whose company exploded from 10 billion to nearly 3 billion during the AI boom. Now at 65, Cook has led Apple through its most innovative era, according to some, launching the expansion of Apple Watches, AirPods, Apple Pay, Apple TV Plus. But even extraordinary leaders slow down. Research shows creativity and cognitive flexibility decline modestly after age 60. Cook's final act of brilliance may be knowing when to hand over power while Apple is still at its peak. What's the real message here? Hey, old guys, you can step aside occasionally. Congratulations to Tim Cook, who seems to be self-aware enough to know, I'm not invincible. I'm not going to live forever. I've had a good run. Now let me turn over the keys to someone younger. We need more people to do like that in government and elsewhere. Let's dig a little deeper here. I'm not saying Tim Cook is over the hill and isn't competent anymore. But there is something very likable about the fact that someone says, hey, I'm not indispensable. The world can get along without me. That's kind of refreshing. Too often people become either the CEO or the president of something or of a government. They're like, the world cannot get along without me. I will never leave. There is an African president right now who's 92 years old. He's been in power seemingly forever, doesn't want to leave at all. Now, let's look at some of the facts here. It is important to point out the median CEO age these days is 58. Tim Cook will soon be 65. And now he hasn't officially announced this, but it's come from so many credible sources. And Apple is so tight-lipped about things. You have to think that there is something there. He is, in fact, going to retire. Right now, Apple appears to be grooming John Ternus, age 50, as the likely successor. That's roughly how old Tim Cook was when he took over from Steve Jobs. Part of being great is knowing when to let go, when to leave, when to retire. Now, I'm sure Tim Cook will still be active. I'm sure he'll be on the board. He'll be investing in a million startups. He'll be giving speeches. He'll be writing books. He's not exactly going to sit back in the rocker at an old folks' home. But being the CEO of arguably one of the top, number one, number two, number three companies in the entire world, and all the employees and all the shareholders, that's tremendous, tremendous pressure. And it is a simple fact that a 65-year-old does not have the same resilience as a 50-year-old, doesn't bounce back the same after those transcontinental flights, those overnights to China and back. I can tell you, I like to think I'm in better shape than average. I run every day. I do aerobic exercise every day. I would lift weights every day. I can tell you at age 62, my endurance is not the same as it was at 50 or 38. That's for certain. My ability to even stay up late is not the same. And you can say, well, TJ, that's just you. Guess what? It is most people after the age of 65. The idea of running one of the most important companies in the entire world, thousands and thousands of people reporting to you, and being as good as you were at 50, it strains credulity. Now, you can point to examples of like Warren Buffett, who, by the way, has announced his official retirement within the next year, and who is roughly 189 years old. That's a little bit different because, well, Berkshire Hathaway is a huge publicly traded company. It's really kind of more like a mutual fund, frankly. It holds stakes in other companies. That the number of employees that Warren Buffett actually has to manage is minuscule compared to what Tim Cook does. So I don't think that analogy holds. So as I mentioned to you, I was watching Evita last night with my family, but at about 8:45, I was ready to go to sleep. My 12-year-old daughter was ready to go to sleep. And we figured, you know what, let's break up the movie into part one and part two. We're going to watch the second half tonight. Why is that relevant? It's because if you're going to be the CEO of a publicly traded company, you have to have energy. And that's not that you don't ever deserve a good night's sleep, but there could be a crisis in one of your factories on the other side of the world where people are injured, died, regulatory issues, protests. You may have to get up at 2 a.m. and deal with it. That becomes increasingly harder as you age. It's just biology. You can talk all you want to about how let's not be age discriminatory. You know who doesn't discriminate against age? Biology. And it's a simple matter that you do get less likely to bounce back when you lose sleep. Your energy levels are not the same, although by all accounts, he is in extraordinarily good shape. Starts his day at something like 3:45 in the morning, working out for an hour a day. But even he knows his limits. Now, Tim Cook has been criticized by many who say, well, look, Steve Jobs did all the creativity, the iPod, the iPhone, the tablets, the thing I'm using right now for my teleprompter, their fantastic tablet. All that happened under Steve Jobs, the iMac. What did Tim Cook ever create? Well, it's not quite that simple. He is responsible largely for the AirPods, Apple Pay, TV, so many other things. And again, the biggest thing of all, if you're a shareholder, and I am indirectly through index funds, I don't own it directly myself. But to take a company worth $300 billion, which was huge 14 years ago, but to turn it into something now worth $3 trillion, that puts him in rarefied atmosphere. That puts him up there with the Jensen Wangs of the world and the Jeff Bezoses of the world. It's an extraordinarily elite club. And Tim Cook deserves the praise. He deserves the credit. And I think it's smart of him to go out on top on his own terms rather than waiting for a couple of down quarters, a stock market going down, and enemies circling saying, retire, retire, get rid of this guy, get rid of the bum, because it could easily happen at some point. His stewardship has been remarkable. There's been extraordinary growth in revenues during his tenure and extraordinary growth in how the market values the company. And I hope that more people in leadership positions, are you paying attention, Washington, D.C.? I hope more people in senior level positions follow up on his example. And then if you are a senator or a president or a CEO of a publicly traded company, you don't have to just sit back and knit. You don't have to play backgammon all day. Join me in the podcasting world. You don't really have to manage people. If you're not 100% alert, take a nap and then do your podcast. The stakes are much lower. Your capacity for damage is much smaller. So, Tim, perhaps I'll see you as a fellow YouTuber and TikToker and podcaster, but I wish you well regardless of what you do. More in a moment after these commercial words.
Filtered is brought to you by the following. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly.
Welcome back to Filtered. I'm your host, TJ Walker. This is the show where every day we look at top business stories, technology stories, and culture stories, filter them through the lens of communication and personal development skills, all with the goal of helping you learn a little more about what's going on in the world that's important, but also learning more about yourself, improving your communication, personal development skills so that you can be more successful. Let's dive right into issue 2. Tariff threats and the AI bubble. Asian markets tumbled after President Trump threatened a new 100% tariff on all Chinese imports and hinted at export controls on critical software. I should point out, we are recording this at 8:55 a.m. Monday morning, August 13th. So U.S. markets are not yet open. Asian markets are, and they're following the trend that happened in the United States Friday, where there was a massive sell-off. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell 1.5%. South Korea and Taiwan each dropped about 1%, and the Shanghai Composite slid slightly. Investors now fear another U.S.-China trade war, just months after both sides had paused escalation. At the same time, the U.S. economy may be more fragile than it looks. According to the New York Times and NYU professor Scott Galloway, 80% of this year's market gains come from just 10 AI companies, including NVIDIA, AMD, and Microsoft. Galloway says, quote, America is a bet on AI and the rich who own it. If tariffs hit and the AI bubble burst, the shock could go global. Gold already hit a record $4,000 an ounce as investors look for safety. Okay, so what's the real message here? When it comes to tariffs, the whole world kind of dodged a bullet last spring. Yeah, the market went way down. All of a sudden, it's like, we're going to forget all this, and it's the good times back. Well, the good times may have been temporary. The idea that you can take what has worked, international trade, fair trade around the world, and throw it in the garbage can and expect the economy to continue growing, the stock market to continue growing, that is a fantasy. Let's dig a little bit deeper now. I should point out that the track record of consensus on when the next recession will be is awful. The track record of so-called pundits and experts and mavens saying, okay, this is when the current tech bubble is going to burst is awful. There were an awful lot of people who said the internet bubble was going to burst in 1997 and 1998. Wrong, wrong. If you took their advice, you could have been really harmed. The market didn't crash till end of 2000 and early 2001. So you have to be skeptical when there's consensus of experts proclaiming a recession's coming. I well remember it was only a few years ago, and Bloomberg did a poll of major economists, and they all said the economy was going to go into a recession in 2023, and they were completely wrong. It just didn't happen. So you've got to be wary about that. So do not take the advice I'm giving you, the news I'm reporting, as somehow proof that, oh, I got to sell all my stocks. No, I'm not telling you to do that. But I do want you to be aware of how markets are receiving information, what messages are being received, because the new 100% tariff on China is not pleasing Asian markets. So I mentioned there were a lot of drops in stock markets around the world. China's export ban on rare earth minerals triggered U.S. retaliation, and we saw the U.S. markets tumble on Friday. Goldman Sachs has warned of a renewed trade war that's going to have a severe global impact. Scott Galloway has been very eloquent in showing about and talking about how all these massive gains in the stock market, all these people feeling richer, including myself, from the stock market going up, 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 in a universe of tens of thousands of publicly traded companies, if you add in every company on every index around the world, almost all the gains come from just 10 companies. And they're all big time invested in artificial intelligence, specifically people spending more and more and more money on artificial intelligence. And if that stops, poof, the party ends. We could see things doubling down in really bad ways. Right now, AI valuations are at 27 times forward earnings. That's near dot-com bubble levels. Again, am I saying a bubble is going to happen today, this month, the next quarter, the next 6 months? No. But it does not hurt to look at comparisons of where we were in previous bubbles. The fact that gold is now at $4,000 per ounce, we talked about that last week. It's up 121% since 2022. That's typically what happens when investors get really jittery and really nervous. It does not necessarily predict a recession, but it's not exactly sending a strong message of confidence. So what is the real message for you and for me? A part of what I do teach people in personal development classes, my online courses, is you do need to prepare for your financial future. And you do need to have basic, solid principles of diversification. So if you are 100% in the market, and that's it, you don't have an income, you don't have a job, you don't have other investments in non-stock market assets, be prepared for it to go way down and way up. It did that earlier this year, and a lot of people were chewing their fingernails down to their wrist practically. You may need to get ready to do that again. I may need to get ready to do that again. So ultimately, you cannot control this guy on the screen. You cannot control the markets. You cannot control, I'm going to take that off right now. Forgive me, those of you listening on the podcast. I have a screenshot of a certain someone that I'm going to take off now. Ultimately, you have to prepare yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't look out for the rest of society, but you do have to take care of your own fiscal house, your own financial independence for you, your family, your loved ones, and focus on what you can control. You can focus on learning new skills. You can focus on creating more value in the marketplace, because everything you have an investment in now could go down radically. There's one investment that does not get devalued: your own skills, your own brain. Now, it's true, artificial intelligence can make some of those skills irrelevant, But if you keep learning new skills and keep trying new things, keep experimenting, you have a better chance of not becoming irrelevant. And that's really what I hope happens for you. We do live in a time when artificial intelligence is making certain jobs irrelevant. We're seeing consulting, management consulting wiped out, the beginning lower level industries, the lower level job, the jobs right out of college for computer science, for management consulting, canceled. What are you going to do? You can't just blame Washington on that. Washington, Trump, as much as he gets blamed for a lot, he can't be blamed for that. Sorry. You're going to have to take accountability for yourself. Now, if you are a farmer, if you're a soybean farmer in America, you recently saw all of your customers flee. They were Chinese customers buying soybeans, and they've said, see you later, America. We're tired of you treating us like chumps. We're going to buy from other places. So if you are an American soybean farmer, perhaps you want to question who you vote for if they're running on a platform of, I'm going to impose tariffs around the world. Because you now know there are costs. A tariff is really nothing but a tax on an American consumer. That's one. But it's also a great jobs elimination program, as soybean farmers in the upper Midwest in America are seeing. We're seeing, by some estimates, $50 billion of the soybean economy gone because of tariffs. So you may want to question who you're supporting politically, perhaps get in alignment with someone who actually is in favor of you selling your product to people anywhere in the world, which is what you've done for decades. It's called the free market system. It's called free market capitalism. It's not how the entire world operates, but it's how a lot of the world operates. It's what brought prosperity to Americans, more so than people of any other country. Let's take a look at your comments. If you want to add your opinion here and you're watching live, thank you for watching live. You can go right to the chat on any platform you're looking at. And apologies to my friends watching on TikTok. I cannot see your comments, but I can if you come over to Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitch or any other platform. I can see your comments. And I see SS has written in and is saying, well, a number of things. I appreciate your comments saying, hello, you're right. AI bubble is .com 2.0. I don't know if that's true. Because what happened in the .com era and what happened in a lot of technology bubbles is something new happened. Everyone was excited. Investors ran in and just threw money at any company that dealt with that new technology. It happened with railroads, happened with radio stations, happened with automobiles, happened with the internet. And in each case, there were a handful of big winners. There were people who got massive return on investment, but the vast majority of companies went bankrupt. The vast majority of investors lost all their money. You had to have a place to bet on the right winner. And nobody knows who that is. Increasingly, people are concluding that it is OpenAI. They're the front runner right now. They're getting more and more money and more big companies saying, we want a piece of you and let's do business and let's become interlocking. But nobody really knows. So I don't know, SS, if this is a bubble. And if so, I don't know when it's going to burst. You get out too early, you lose on a lot of upside. I think, SS continues, I think we could be getting a recession and we need to prepare. Well, very few predictions are wrong if they just don't put a timeline. I can state to you categorically, we are going to have a recession. Now, maybe it's 18 years before we have one, but I'm technically not wrong if I predict a recession, because there's always a recession at some point in capitalistic countries. The problem is you don't know when. If you really did know when, if I really knew when it would happen, I'd be a billionaire. You would be a billionaire. That's what's exciting about it, interesting about it. Nobody really knows. Now, there are people who make predictions. And then it turns out they were right, but maybe they were just lucky. If you look at the history of economic predictions, especially people who called a huge drop, a depression, a recession in advance, typically what happens is they continue to make that prediction their entire career. So they're wrong the next 19 times. And they coast off that reputation of having been correct because they got so much affirmation for that. Other comments coming in. AI is a tool that I can use to advance themselves. Elon Musk said AI has PhD level intelligence in many areas, not just one, which could be for the smartest human. I feel bad for farmers, but at the same time, they know what they voted for. Fair point. Do you think it's possible for farmers to recover and recuperate their losses? No. Now, I have family members who were farmers. Some of my fondest memories were going to the dairy farm near Lafayette. It wasn't in Lafayette, but it was maybe an hour away from Lafayette, Indiana, and playing with the cows, playing in the cornfields. So I have a warm spot in my heart for farmers of America. But the simple reality is there's two things, and there's really three trends that have made family farming, for the most part, unprofitable businesses. One of them is competition from farmers in other countries who have a much lower cost of living. That's a part of it, but only a part of it. The other thing is technology has gotten better and better and better. And that leads to the third part, which is if you don't have scale, if you're not a gigantic industrialized farm with tens and tens of thousands of acres, using all the efficiencies of technology, you're not going to be able to produce commodities at a profitable price. You're just not. And this has been going on for decades. And farmers have a disproportionate amount of political influence in our country. Politicians of both major parties have a soft spot in their heart for farmers. Democrats like farmers because, it's a small business and it's families and we have farmers in our district. Yes, we'd like to help you. We're not going to call it farming welfare, but it is. Subsidies, quotas, all sorts of things, roadblocks so you can't sell sugar from other countries. And there's so many things that make it easier for a non-profitable farmer to still make money in our country because of regulation, because of the hand of big government. Now, I mentioned the Democrats. Republicans love giving goodies. They love welfare to farmers. Why? Hold on to your seats. This is a bit controversial in some circles because most farmers are white. They're white men. They own guns. They own pickup trucks. They vote Republican. They look good in MAGA hats. And so Republicans love voting for handouts and goodies and welfare and subsidies and quotas and tariffs that help farmers. So they're getting it from both areas. At some point, the music is going to stop. And I think we're going to see a continued trend that we've seen for decades in America where small family farms close down. They sell to larger corporations. I know, firsthand experience. I used to work with a lot of farmers. I used to do the media training for the New York Dairy Association. I would work with dairy farmers, teaching them how to respond to the media if mad cow disease broke out and things like that. And I remember being told at the time that every single day of the year, dairy farms went out every single day of the year. Dairy farms closed their shop in just one state of New York. So this is a trend that is not really going to change. It's sometimes going to slow down, but it isn't going to change. In the same way, you see family-owned local hardware stores going out of business. Are you really going to pass a law banning Home Depot? Some communities try. It only works so long. Is it progress in the sense of it's making the world a lot better? No. But here's the thing. If you really do believe in capitalism, And I do. I'm a sane, sensible centrist. And we do have at least one party in America that does still believe in capitalism. You have to realize there are going to be some winners and losers in economy. And if someone can't make it economically, we can spend money retraining them, giving them education, helping them in time of need, unemployment, insurance, etc. But the government really ought not to be in the business of picking winners and losers most of the time for run-of-the-mill businesses like farms and grocery stores and hardware stores. And that is fundamental reality. Another comment's coming in. Well, 80% of grains come from 10 companies. That's not growth. That's, for gains, not grains. I was confusing our first issue and our second issue of the day, but good point. If you would like to share your opinion and you're watching this on demand or listening to this on a podcast, please feel free to leave your comments. I read all comments. You can post on whatever platform you're looking at. If you're on a podcast and you don't see a place to post, you can always go to my YouTube channel and go to the post section. That's where the community tab is these days. You can find me on YouTube. You can just type in Filtered with TJ Walker, the name of the show, or the name of my channel, TJ Walker Success, or just type in TJ Walker. There are a few. You will see my face on that one, and you'll be able to leave your comments there. More in a moment.
Like what you heard? Don't let the algorithm bury us. Subscribe now at substack.com/@TJ Walker Success. Want direct access to me live? Want to unlock bonus episodes, behind the scenes takes, and full access to my premium courses? Then become a member today. Just go to tjwalker.com/members and choose your preferred platform, YouTube, Patreon, whatever works for you. This isn't just another subscription. It's a full access pass to the tools, coaching, and content that can transform your communication and career. tjwalker.com/members. I'll see you inside.
Welcome back to Filtered Issue 3, Breaking Ribs for a Barbie Waist. According to the Times, a disturbing new plastic surgery trend is spreading worldwide, and it's called rib remodeling. Surgeons now deliberately fracture or shave ribs to shrink a woman's waist by 3 to 5 inches. The procedure began in Russia in 2017 and has since gone global. Now, I remember hearing decades ago that Cher had this done. I always thought that was a silly rumor, but who knows these days? And in the procedure, it uses drills or ultrasonic tools to bend and break ribs, then requires patients to wear corsets for months until the bones heal in a tighter position. Doctors market it as the Barbie waist or WASP procedure. Some patients even stay awake during surgery, chatting on their phones while their ribs are being broken. Recovery takes up to 12 weeks, and the risks include lung injury, chronic pain, nerve damage, and even permanent deformity. Surgeons call it a paradigm shift, but most medical experts call it what it is: mutilation disguised as beauty. So what's the real message here? There are some sick and depraved plastic surgeons out there selling women this idea that I can break your ribs, break your bones, and make you have a Barbie waist. Well, maybe they can, but it is dangerous. It could kill you. It could destroy your health. What happened to the Hippocratic oath of first do no harm? This is do as much harm as possible, cash the check. Let's dive a little bit deeper here. So we as human beings, unfortunately, seem to be coded. It's something in almost every culture where there is, in fact, a certain proportion considered highly desirable among men for women. It's a proportion of hip to waist ratio. Now, in some countries, it's much bigger than others, but the ratio is the same. So it is, in fact, according to some anthropologists, sociologists, somehow hardwired, because it's not just countries where people are receiving messages from fashion shows in New York City or Paris or Milan. There's something about that, and evolutionary biologists believe it has to do with a human looking to reproduce thinks, okay, a certain shape connotes fertility, and therefore that makes it more desirable to me if I'm a male trying to mate and wanting to have kids. So that's the backdrop, but this seems like it's taking it to an extraordinarily bizarre, dangerous end of breaking women's ribs, cracking them, sawing them off to make it smaller, resulting in lung injury, nerve damage, chronic pain. Look, it's one thing to say the customer is always right, but if I go to a doctor and say, I'd like to lose 30 pounds really quickly, or 40 pounds really quickly, and the doctor says, okay, let me get a hacksaw and cut off your right leg. Okay, he would be meeting a demand of the marketplace. I asked to lose 40 pounds. But if he cut off my leg, that's an extreme, bizarre, dangerous way of doing it. So shame, I'm not asking for that, obviously, but you get the sense that there are some surgeons who would do that. No. And this is a twisted reality. Let's step back and look at a couple of other macro factors going on in the world. In the United States, but increasingly in countries around the world other than those that are affected by the most extreme famine and poverty, we are seeing a rapid rise of obesity. And we are seeing a rise of people being overweight. Now, you don't need me to tell you, if you're obese, you become sort of round, you become sort of pear-shaped. You lose that stereotypical desired body shape. And it's for men too. There's no culture in the world where women like, wow, I really want a completely pear-shaped, out-of-shape guy. So I'm not saying this in sexist terms, but this is I guess a sexist story in the sense I'm not hearing stories about men breaking their ribs for a tiny 18-inch waist. It does seem to be something that's being marketed to women. And I would have to presume most of the people taking the money here, these plastic surgeons, are a majority, not exclusively, but a majority of them are men. So there's that kind of sexist angle to this story as well. Here's the bottom line. If you are pear-shaped or overweight in any way, I have a solution for you that will also make your waist smaller. And if you're paying according to the research, these surgeries cost $8,000 to $10,000. I have a solution that will only cost you $5,000, guaranteed to make your waist smaller. So my address is below. Just send me the $5,000, and I guarantee you will get this. Okay, it's available for less than $5,000. It's actually free. Here's the solution if you want a smaller waist. It's called eat less garbage food each day. Do not drink your calories in the form of sugary drinks. Drink water throughout the day. Eat real food that is largely unprocessed. You don't need an apple smoothie made of 14 apples. Just eat one apple. You probably will be satisfied. You don't need to eat another one. Exercise. Maybe instead of sitting all day long, holding a cell phone, and I appreciate if you're doing that now watching me, get up, move. Now, you've heard people talk about recommending 10,000 steps a day. I'm not telling you that's the guaranteed number that's going to give you the perfect 23-inch waist. But if you walk twice as much as what you're currently walking, and if you're an average American, you're only walking 4,000 or 5,000 steps a day, which is nothing. Look, I'm an old man. I walked 17,000 steps yesterday. It doesn't require youth and vigor. It doesn't require special tools. It doesn't require $5,000 or $10,000 to a surgeon. walk more, exercise more, drink water, stop drinking calories, stop eating heavily processed food, eat real fruit, real vegetable. Well, TJ, some people live in food deserts. That's easy for you to say. Guess what? If you're in a food desert, if you just do this one thing, it's highly likely you'll lose numerous pounds over the next year. Just don't drink soda. Oh, but TJ, I only drink diet soda. Don't drink diet soda. Drink water. Move more. Eat a real piece of fruit. Eat a real vegetable. Avoid fried food. Now, I'm not a nutritionist, but what I'm saying has universal acceptance among mainstream doctors, scientists, nutritionists. I'm not saying anything controversial. The difference is it's not marketed. I guarantee you these surgeons selling these Barbie waist are good at marketing. You'll go into their office and it's going to look beautiful. And they're going to have assistants, typically attractive young women with lab coats who are very aspirational. And the doctor's going to be charming, and the office is going to be well appointed, and it's going to look like this beautiful health spa. They're great at marketing this dream of having a Barbie waist. Me telling you exercise more, eat real food, forget the extra large Starbucks mocha latte with about 10 pounds of sugar in it to start your day. That's not sexy. That's not marketed very well. But it's a lot safer than having your ribs ripped out of your body. Now, this is absolutely crazy. Now, there are some who are saying, "Oh, this is the result of extreme pressure of social media beauty standards." And there have been, I saw it in preparing for this story, pictures of Kim Kardashian with this corset on, what looked like a tiny waist. And she's aspirational to some. I'm not quite sure why. But you know what? If you want to be a healthy person and a successful person and a happy person in the modern world, you're going to have to learn one thing, if nothing else. It's the ability to look at something on the screen and ignore it. It's the ability to look at something on the screen and say, okay, that's all right for them, not for me. That is what will ultimately make you healthier and happier and more successful. We have Joshua writing in as well. And Joshua writes in talking about a paradigm shift. I call it a tragic commentary on how far people will go to chase illusions. No filter or corset can fix what's broken inside our beauty culture. Joshua, you have the last word on that one. There's more to come.
Want a shortcut to powerful communication skills? Download the TJ Walker Success Library, 5 of my best-selling books for only $9.95. Go to tjwalker.com/books. Instant access, big impact. I've had entire YouTube channels wiped out overnight, so if you enjoy this show, don't lose track of me. The safest way is my newsletter, substack.com/@TJ Walker Success. Sign up for free and you'll get exclusive commentary, live session alerts, and first access to new tools. Again, that's substack.com. Just search for TJ Walker or go to substack.com/@TJ Walker Success. Your direct line to everything I do.
Welcome back. This is Filter with TJ Walker. Our next big issue, brand-sponsored weddings. According to a new Talker research survey, weddings are going corporate, with the average American wedding now costing over $30,000. 6 in 10 Americans say they'd welcome corporate sponsorship to help pay for their big day, and they're serious about it. 1 in 3 would invite a brand mascot like the Geico Gecko or Ronald McDonald to attend. 1 in 5 would even let that mascot officially the ceremony. That just boggles the mind. Two people getting married, a serious thing, and there's Ronald McDonald giving the vows to people. And 1 in 6 would wear a logo on their wedding dress if the brand covered the entire cost. Respondents said brands would need to pay about 2/3 of the experience to be included, or all of it for full creative control. It's a strange new twist in American romance, a wedding where love meets logos. Okay, what's the real message here? Bridezilla needs to get off the steroids. The idea that we all have to have a $100,000 wedding on our big day or it's not real, and therefore let's whore ourselves out to every corporation and logo to make it happen is bizarre. It's weird. It's time to say time out. How about having a small, intimate gathering of close friends and family and a piece of cake? You might be much happier that way. Let's look at some of the facts in more detail here. The average wedding cost in America last year, $30,000. Again, shockingly, 1 in 3 people, according to this survey, and it's something called a Talker Research Survey. You can look it up. 1 in 3 said they would invite a corporate mascot as a guest. Okay, a guest is one thing, not necessarily to deliver the vows. But 1 in 5 said they would let the mascot officiate. It just makes me wonder, like, where do we draw the line? And I don't want to sound like a purist. Look, I am a so-called Amazon influencer, and I do endorsements of certain products that I happen to like and happen to use. And I've even brought my family members into it. If we have a product we like, we just talk about it, show it, and then when someone buys it on Amazon, we get a teeny sliver. But I didn't do it on my wedding day. And full disclosure, I've had 2 weddings. One, a lot of money was spent. Another one, no money was spent. The one that a lot of money was spent lasted about 3 months. The one where no money was spent is now in its fully into its second decade. So you can draw from that what you will. But corporate logos could appear on stationery, napkins, cocktails. Now, we're used to going to a bar and the glass maybe has a logo, has a Coca-Cola logo. That seems pretty innocuous. But if this is your big day, do you want to spend all your time going around chasing brand deals? It also makes me worry that it just keeps on creeping and keeps on creeping. Are we that far away from when people are going to put on OnlyFans their wedding night and sell sponsorships or memberships so people can watch their wedding night together, and it could be an X-rated porn OnlyFans type of thing? People, maybe they're already doing that, and I'm so clueless, I don't know. But what would you do for your wedding? I'm curious as to whether these survey results are even valid. Would you want a corporate sponsor for your wedding? Would it make the whole day more special, or would it make it seem kind of weird, kind of tainted, kind of odd? And I would toss out, what's wrong with having a simple wedding? Now, I understand you see images all day long. If you just got engaged and you're on Instagram, and I can only imagine all day long, you're seeing pictures of wedding gowns that cost $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. You are seeing images of Taylor Swift's ring the size of a football, and you're thinking, maybe I can get my fiance to upgrade. How do we afford that? Let's get a corporate sponsor. So we do live in a world where social media is designed to poke you, prod you, and make you feel inadequate about your own wedding, about your wedding, your engagement ring, about your entertainment, about the flower. I mean, you can spend $50,000. You can spend $100,000 on flowers if you want to get crazy. Does anyone really care about the flower? You could say you do. Okay. It's a different world. Not everyone has to be the same. Look, I'm a capitalist. I do believe in capital. I'm a a sane, sensible centrist. I'm not someone who wants the government to ban huge swaths of the economy unless there's absolute compelling reason. I don't want someone setting up a business allowing you to sell your limbs or to sell your organs to make money. I do think there should be some limits of how capitalism interacts with humans and bodies. So I'm not saying this should be illegal, but just because something is legal doesn't mean it's a good idea, doesn't mean it's a good sign for society. And again, as I mentioned, I'm pro-capitalism, but does it have to intrude the most intimate moments of your entire life? This to me seems to be going too far. What do you say? Go ahead and weigh in on this. I would love to hear from you. Back with our final issue of the day, and boy, is it a biggie.
We'll be right back after this break. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Most people can't afford a full-time coach. And even if you could, good luck finding one who's available when you need them. That's why I created the TJ Walker AI clone. It's built on my 40-plus years of real-world coaching and training. You get my exact advice, style, and frameworks instantly. Ask it how to handle a tough question, get feedback on your elevator pitch, rehearse your next big talk. This is the next generation of communication coaching. It's smarter than an app, more personal than a course, and always ready. Start using it today at tjwalker.ai. You'll wonder how you ever did without it.
When power turns unhinged, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says President Trump's latest behavior isn't just political, it's disturbing. After Trump threatened to jail Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson for opposing federal troop deployment, the governor accused aides of taking advantage of Trump's dementia. J.B. Pritzker is making a categorical statement that he believes Donald Trump has dementia. According to the Daily Beast and Vox, Trump sent 500 National Guard troops into Chicago without state approval, then accused local leaders of failing to protect ICE agents. Pritzker called it crazy and urged Trump's family to intervene. So is the president, is he suffering dementia? Is he insane, perhaps? Now, legally, insane means unable to tell right from wrong. I don't know about dementia. I'm not a doctor, but is insane perhaps the best label for J.B. Pritzker to be using against Donald Trump? Medically, it refers to a severe disorder impairing judgment, but in everyday speech, insane simply means irrational or detached from reality. And threatening to jail governors for disagreeing with you certainly fits that definition to most sane people, I would argue. Whether it's dementia or delusion, the danger is real. And the Constitution gives us two safeguards: impeachment and the 25th Amendment, both designed for moments exactly like this. Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper here. What does this really mean? J.B. Pritzker is saying the president suffers dementia. I don't know about dementia, but he clearly seems insane when he's running around the world saying, "Give me a Nobel Peace Prize," at the same time waging war with U.S. military and U.S. National Guard against American citizens, American cities, and pastors praying on the ground are shot in the head with rubber bullets. If that's not insane, there's no such thing as insanity. Let's dig a little deeper here. One of the big criticisms of the Democratic Party and Democrats in general, and I happen to share this criticism, is that they are weak, mealy-mouthed, too cautious, too much of put your finger in the air, see which way the wind is blowing. Let me take a poll first before I take a stance. I give a lot of credit to J.B. Pritzker for taking the gloves off and seeing what I happen to think he really believes. I do think he genuinely believes that Donald Trump has dementia. Again, J.B. Pritzker is not a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not asking you to take my medical evaluation of any politician because I'm not giving them. But we got to be real here, folks. Most of America, and let's give credit where credit is due, Republicans saw this sooner than Democrats did, could clearly see that Joe Biden was too old. He seemed feeble. He seemed like a grandpa you would visit at the old folks' home, where someday he knew your name and some days he didn't. Some days he knew what year it was, and other days he thought it was 20 years ago. Millions and millions of Republicans saw it with their own eyes. And to their credit, they spoke out about it. And a lot of Democrats and a lot of liberals and a lot of progressive pundits for several years were like, nothing to see here, folks, until finally it became blindingly obvious to everyone in the first presidential debate last year. And at that point, it was like, we just can't keep kidding ourselves any longer. I think J.B. Pritzker makes a good point that we've reached that point with Donald Trump. When you have an American president shredding the Constitution, ignoring the role of Congress, waging war using U.S. military, U.S. ICE officials, U.S. police forces, National Guards, and waging war against Americans, that's completely against everything this country has ever stood for. No other president has ever done anything even remotely like this. And I think it is time for more and more people to call a spade a spade. If you are a Republican and 4 years ago you said, wow, Joe Biden is clearly too old. He seems like he's lost his mind. He seems like an old, dithering, drooling man who should have no place anywhere near the White House or the button. If you were one of those people, well, guess what? You deserve some credit. You were maybe a day or two ahead of schedule, but ultimately you were proven right. But it's time we both were honest, and it's time we're honest about both parties. We have a situation where the Republican Party now has a leader who has gotten himself elected president of the United States, and by every objective standard is crazier than doing crazy things, much crazier than Joe Biden ever did. And it is increasingly obvious to people he is mentally impaired. I'm not saying that as a clinician. I'm not saying that as someone who is giving a medical analysis. I'm saying it as someone who has two eyes. In the same way, those of you with two eyes could tell a year ago, some of you 2 or 3 years ago, Joe Biden's too old for this. We got to somehow get him out of here, and we're certainly not going to vote for him again. Anyone with two eyes could see that. They didn't have to be a gerontologist to figure it out. And if you figure that out, you should be able to figure out that the absolute incoherent nonsense coming out of Trump's mouth is similarly bat excrement insane. Trying to keep this a family-friendly show here. It's utterly, bizarrely insane, the things he says, the things he does, waging war against fellow Americans is, by all accounts, until he became president, if you had said to any voters, Republican or Democrat, hey, what do you think of a president who says, I don't like this state, so I'm going to go to states where there is a city that has a mayor of a different party of mine that's had crime decreasing for years. And I am going to use military force, National Guard, American police officials to go in and crack skulls and maybe even shoot a gun at the head of a pastor who's praying. I think across the political spectrum, you would have heard outrage. You would have heard, that's insane. You would have heard politicians on the right saying, this is the sort of government overreach we've been warning about. This is the totalitarian extremist regime we've been warning about. This is why people need to have guns to fight, to prepare themselves, to defend themselves from this sort of government overreach. That's what people on the right would have said. People on the left and the center would have been equally as appalled. And yet it's happening now right in front of us. And most people, oh, I don't see it. How the stock market do today? Oh, I don't see it. How can I sell more soybeans today? It's right in front of us, folks. We need to wake up. So again, I'm not going to make the assertion that Donald Trump is suffering dementia or Alzheimer's. I'm not medically classified to do that, but I am a human being, a sentient human being with two eyes. And to me, it is abundantly obvious that he is insane. Saying you win a peace prize and you're using the military to attack American citizens is insane. Routinely ignoring everything the Constitution tells you you can and can't do, even though you're sworn to uphold the Constitution, is insane. Destroying one of the greatest economies in the world and destroying certain industries, like our soybean farmers industry, is insane. Now, there are a couple of solutions. Well, there's really four kind of solutions. One is the 25th Amendment, which would allow the vice president and the cabinet to deem him unfit, confirmed by Congress. Let's face it, that's not going to happen because the vice president and the cabinet are sycophants. They are henchmen, and they live in terror and fear of ever disappointing their leader. So while that's theoretically possible, if we actually had sane, responsible, and respectable leaders who cared more about their country than partisanship, I do believe that right now the case would be obvious to the vice president and the cabinet that our incumbent president should be removed from office. But that's not going to happen. Next solution is impeachment. The House charges and the Senate convicts by 2/3. Well, that's not going to happen. Why? Because the Senate is controlled by Republicans, and they're not even going to get a majority of the Republicans. And the Republicans, again, live in constant fear. As Mitt Romney, a former U.S. senator, pointed out, he had other Republican senators tell him they would have liked to have impeached Trump. They lived in fear. They lived in fear because if they disappointed their leader, they would be inundated with death threats. And they could not afford $5,000 a day for personal security the way someone who's worth $500 million like Mitt Romney could do. So it's not going to happen through impeachment. One partial fix would be if the Democrats take back one or both chambers of the Congress. Highly unlikely they're going to take back control of the Senate next year, even if there are fair elections. The House, certainly historically, is likely to shift to the party out of power, which would be the Democrats. And they should take control. They could at least start investigating the president. They could have a trial and impeach him. They're not going to convict him, but they could do that. That would certainly at least slow down some of the madness. Another option is, I'm not wishing any ill will on someone, but one too many McDonald's hamburgers and fries and double scoops of ice cream for dear orange leader, and well, you can figure it out. Again, I'm wishing no ill will, no ill health to anyone on this, but that would solve the problem. There's also just the possibility of the ultimate in corruption. Maybe members of both parties just make a deal and say, let's just give Trump all the gold in Fort Knox if he just agrees to resign or even leave power, because he increasingly looks like he wants a third term, a fourth term, Trump forever. So maybe the only way to get him out of office or to not run again is to just say, okay, we're giving you all the gold in Fort Knox. That's another potential solution. Is that constitutionally kosher? No, but nothing else seems to be these days either. I do think if you are someone who is a center-right person, someone who actually liked George Bush, either one of them, or Ronald Reagan, or John McCain, or Mitt Romney, if you're a center-right politician, if you're a Republican and you believe in traditional Republican values, if you're a centrist, if you're a Democrat of any persuasion, you need to stop pretending that this is normal, that this is rational, that this is just another day of politics, and these Washington politicians, they can't get along, and no, these are crazy times. And the craziness is emanating from one source, and it's emanating from the White House. And it is time to call a spade a spade. This president is insane. Again, I'm not saying he has dementia. I'm not saying he has Alzheimer's. I'm saying by the commonly held notion of insanity, someone who's completely unable to distinguish good from bad, evil from positive, this president fits the bill. And more of us need to say it. One person saying it is dismissed. Two people saying it, a couple cranks. But if more and more people actually point out this fundamental truth, over time it will sink in. Some more comments have come in today. And let's see, Joshua has one more comment. Says, power without accountability always looks crazy from the outside, whether it's delusion or dementia. The real danger is what happens when no one dares to say enough. Joshua, you are right. And I'm saying enough. What do you say? I'd love to hear from you. My name is TJ Walker. This is a relatively new podcast. We're just finishing up our 6th week of this show. And those of you listening on any podcast platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, thank you so much for doing so. Please make sure to follow the show, subscribe, leave a review if possible. If you're watching on any video platform, please leave comments, sign up for notifications, subscribe, and let me hear from you. I would love to hear your comments. What do you like about the show? What do you not like? You think I'm wrong? That's okay. I don't mind having an honest debate, but let's have an honest debate. Give reasons. Don't just say wrong in the comments. Give me your facts. Give me your reasons. Let's have an honest debate. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow.